Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for our color guard presented by the Bladensburg Police Department Ceremonial Honor Guard.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land and of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. Good morning. My name is Adrian Gardner, and I am privileged to serve as your Master of Ceremonies today. The first order of business, I think, is to give it up for Sergeant Rachel Perry of the Prince George's County Division of the Maryland National Capital Park Police for singing that national anthem with all of the heart we deserve. At this time, I'm going to invite Marvin Alonzo Greer to come up and recite the soldier's oath.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and uniform code of military justice. So help me God.
Thank you, Marvin Alonzo. Mr. Greer is the lead interpretation community engagement officer of the Park and Planning Commission's Prince George's County Department of Parks and Recreation. I want to thank you. He's really a national treasure, and if you haven't had an opportunity, you can find some of Marvin Alonzo's interpretive provisions about the World War I on YouTube. Just search for Marvin Alonzo, MAG, the historian. So thank you for that. Welcome as we pause to commemorate Veterans Day and the rededication of the Peace Cross of the World War I Memorial. Again, my name is Adrian Gardner, and in addition to being a son of Glenarden, I am also the son of a World War II and Korea Army officer. Until this September, I was the general counsel of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, and part of my job was to protect this monument so that we could enjoy it today. And I am truly honored to be with you. Today is very rich with meaning. We're going to focus on connections. We're going to talk about connections between yesterday and today. After Congress declared war in 1917, and just 19 months after that led up to the armistice, our country lost 126,000 soldiers in what became known as the Great War. Every one of them took the same oath that you just heard Marvin Alonso recite. And 49 of those people who perished in Europe were from Prince George's County. That is one of the solemn connections we venerate today. In 1919, an ordinary group of citizens started a grassroots movement. And they chose the shape of a cross because they wanted to connect to the graves that remained in Europe, where the fallen remained buried. And there were fits and starts raising money, but eventually, after 6 years in 1925, the Peace Cross was complete. In 1960, the Peace Cross was acquired by the Park and Planning Commission. More recently, in 2014, 3 citizens and an advocacy group decided to sue the Park and Planning Commission. And they were challenging the government ownership of this monument as a violation of church and state. Now, we all believe in church and state. And the Federal Appeals Court actually agreed with those challengers. But on June 20th, 2019, the Supreme Court of the United States rejected that challenge with only With only 2 justices in disagreement. The court ruled that the history of this monument does not disqualify the Park and Planning Commission from owning this monument. So now it is my distinct privilege to also introduce the current chairman of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission and the chairman of the Prince George's County Planning Board, my friend Peter Shapiro.
Good morning, everybody. Nice day. Exactly. Thank you for the warm introduction, Adrian, and thank you for the many efforts as Commission's former General Counsel, including the successful litigation that allowed us to celebrate this occasion today. I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize my predecessor, who is in attendance here, Betty Hewlett, who is as much responsible for all of us being here for this event. So thank you very much. On behalf of the Commission and the Prince George's County Planning Board, it is an honor to greet you this morning. At the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, we take great pride in our role as stewards of natural and historical resources and cultural treasures located throughout Prince George's County and the Bi-County region surrounding the nation's capital. Since our agency's founding 95 years ago, just a few years after this memorial was dedicated, Commission employees past and present have been dedicated to preserving and sharing our county's rich historical heritage. For nearly a century, the Bladensburg Memorial Peace Cross is one of those treasures that has delivered the story of endurance, valor, devotion, and courage across multiple generations. Located at the center of this busy intersection, a 3-way junction of Bladensburg Road, Maryland 450 Annapolis Road, and US 1 Baltimore Avenue, the Bladensburg Memorial Peace Cross was built between 1919 and 1925. The memorial was constructed in honor of the 49 Prince George's County residents who lost their lives during World War I between 1914 and 1918. It is important to remember that it was a diverse group of heroes who defended our country on a unified front, as 8 of the 49 service members that this commemorates were African American. The Bladensburg Memorial Peace Cross has also served as a symbol of community and partnership, as local groups of residents, including 10 grieving mothers who lost their sons in World War I, formed the Prince George's Memorial Committee. In 1919, the committee raised a total of $10,000, which in 1919 was a lot of money, and included donations from the community to build this memorial. On Sunday, September 28, 1919, the groundbreaking for the memorial took place as part of the dedication of the National Defense Highway, the new road between Bladensburg and Annapolis that was named to honor the fallen soldiers. A few years later, the Snyder Farmer Post of the American Legion agreed to take over the task of funding and completing the memorial. The dedication ceremony took place on July 12, 1925. Since 1960, M-NCPPC has owned and maintained this very site when the state of Maryland deeded the land to the commission with a covenant that no structure or commercial sign shall ever be erected on the parcel. Our agency has remained committed to honoring the agreement and defending the memorial's place in our community and history. As Adrian mentioned, in June 2019, after 10 years of litigation, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled 7-2 that the Bladensburg Peace Cross, a war memorial, may stand on public land and could remain M-NCPPC property. Following the legal victory, through community and partnership, efforts were launched on behalf of the memorial as the nearly 100-year-old landmark needed to be restored. With the support of the community, state and local officials, preservationists, and other groups, we stand here today to celebrate the restoration and rededication of this important monument to World War I. The Bladensburg Memorial Peace Cross has served as a reminder of the sacrifices, for the many freedoms we enjoy today. By preserving and protecting this long-standing commemorative symbol, we are able to share our history with future generations. On this Veterans Day, we remember the 49 fallen soldiers from Prince George's County who lost their lives in the Great War for the liberty of the world. And we remember their loved ones who committed to building a structure that remains a symbolic resting place for our heroes who never returned home. Thank you very much. It is now my esteemed honor to introduce to you the Governor of the state of Maryland and a Prince George's County native, the Honorable Larry Hogan.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It's it's a beautiful day in Prince George's County. We don't care about that rain one bit. It's always great when I come back home to Prince George's County, but especially today, on this beautiful special day, as we honor our veterans and as we celebrate the restoration and the rededication of this beautiful and historic monument. Peter, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to the Planning Commission for the tireless efforts that it undertook to protect this hallowed ground. Some of you may know that I grew up just down the road from here, and I remember very vividly as a kid driving past here nearly every day, and I remember being inspired by the story of the families of the fallen soldiers who were raising the money, calling for donations starting as low as 50 cents in order to try to build this Bladensburg Peace Cross Memorial, and how the American Legion got involved to try to make sure that it happened and make sure that it got done. Well, that's why as soon as I learned that a federal appeals court had deemed this peace cross was unconstitutional, I was shocked and disgusted, and I immediately began to fight back. The idea that memorializing our soldiers killed in battle on foreign lands to make the world safe for democracy could be unconstitutional somehow was an insult to our veterans, and it went against everything that we stand for as Americans. So I immediately directed our entire team to explore every available option to fight this judicial overreach and to protect this peace cross. And I directed the Attorney General of Maryland to file an amicus brief in support of the Planning Commission. And I made it abundantly clear that as long as I am governor of this state, we were not going to let anyone remove this memorial. And thankfully, as you've already heard, thanks to all the hard work of so many people, the Supreme Court ruled in our favor. You know, it was the people of this county who first put up this peace cross, and it was the people who fought to keep it up. And now, thanks to the efforts of so many, it will forever be a permanent landmark and memorial here. And so on this Veterans Day, as we rededicate the Bladensburg Peace Cross, we also rededicate ourselves to continuing to honor the sacrifices of the 49 heroes immortalized here and all of the brave Marylanders who have ever worn the flag of our nation on their arm and who put their lives on the line to protect the rights and the freedoms that we all hold so dear. Just as our veterans serve as a reminder every single day of the immeasurable cost of war and the immense price of freedom, this Peace Cross reminds us of the enduring principles these young men fought to defend. And it serves as a lasting tribute of a grateful nation. I want to sincerely thank everyone who has in any way been involved in helping to make today possible. I want to say God bless all those who serve, God bless their families, and may God bless the great state of Maryland and the United States of America. Thank you all very, very much. And to also help commemorate this day, I'm going to ask Peter to come up and I'm going to present him with a official governor citation just to memorialize this dedication today. It's dated today, signed by myself, Lieutenant Governor, and the Secretary of State. It's really to everyone here, but Peter's going to accept on your behalf.
Thank you, Governor Hogan. And I have to take a moment to actually acknowledge something that you said, Governor, which was this. When the Fourth Circuit held that the Park and Planning Commission could not maintain or participate in this monument, there was no hesitation on the governor's part. Zero hesitation. And it was not a foregone conclusion because it was not at that point without controversy. But he stood up and he made a difference. He literally became a friend of the court in the litigation. It made a difference, Governor. It made a difference, and thank you. We acknowledge that. And I'm going to take one moment to simply acknowledge the legal team because it was an amazing experience to work with some of the best lawyers in the country to make sure that this remained here and that we could be here today. For the commission, I have to acknowledge our lead attorney in the Supreme Court, which was Neil Katyal, and Rich Rice from the Hogan Lovells Law Firm, who did this pro bono without cost to the citizens. An amazing contribution. Within the Office of the General Counsel, I have to acknowledge Bill Dickerson and Tracy Harvin, who made a huge difference. And we were shoulder to shoulder partnering with the American Legion, and I will just quickly name Hiram Sasser, who's an attorney for the American Legion, Roger Byron, who's here today with the First Liberty Institute, Michael Carvin, and Chris DePompeo. It was a legal dream team, and it made a difference as well. And at this point, I'm going to make a connection and acknowledge another important partner who really led the effort to finance and get behind the restoration that we're celebrating here today. And that is our own senator from the fantastic 47th Legislative District of Maryland, our very own Malcolm Augustin.
Thank you, Adrian, for that kind introduction. And I just want to start by just saying thank you so much to the governor for being such a tremendous partner on this. And of course, Council Member Ivy and Mayor James. I also just wanted to acknowledge the municipal leaders who are also part of this. This is a Peace Cross for all of Prince George's County. I think you see we've got flags that represent a cross section of the municipalities that are a part of our county. I know we have Mayor James here. We have, and from the 47th district, we have 8 municipalities. And so I see Mayor Munyane, Mayor Casanyas, Mayor Wheatley, Crossland, Shomish Benitez. I did not see Mayor Robinson, but I also saw Mayor Lopez from our various towns. And so I'm very grateful for them and for their support. And all of the others from across our county. You know, Secretary, you mentioned to me that this was a beautiful day and that these are somewhat tears from heaven. An appropriate day also because our soldiers did not have the choice to decide when they were going to defend our freedom. And so I'm just grateful for that. I'm grateful for all of you who have come out here on this day, which of course is weather challenge. We'll just say it like that. But these folks really did make the ultimate sacrifice for us. And I just feel like it's so important that we should really look at this as a rededication and a rebirth of the Peace Cross. And I want to share with you that I think that it's important that we show who we are and how we treat each other, and then how we treat our surroundings. And I consider this some of our surroundings. The Peace Cross is an iconic gateway to the state of Maryland from Washington, D.C., but not long ago, its condition was in disrepair. It was neglected. And I just felt like it sent the message that we really, honestly, we just didn't care about those that gave their lives for our freedom. And furthermore, that we really didn't seem to care about our community as a whole, because it was a demonstration of who we were. Now this, I found it just be completely unacceptable. In the way that the governor mentioned how he felt it was unacceptable, which it was, that it would not stand here, I felt that the way, the condition that it was in was just entirely unacceptable. I was just really pleased that many partners shared that vision of a reinforced, reinvigorated Peace Cross, that we stand for the next 50 years with dignity, demonstrating our strong commitment to our veterans and commitment to demonstrate our love of our community by presenting this monument in a manner with which we will all be proud for the next 50 years. Thank you. Now, this also became kind of personal for me too. And so you'll see over here also there's some commemorative bricks that are on the ground. And I purchased 2 of those bricks to be placed at the foot of the Peace Cross. Now, one of those bricks honors our fallen Prince George's County veterans, and the second honors my brother-in-law, Brigadier General Jeffrey Richard Alexander, who currently serves our country during these troubled times, and my father, Matthew Augustine, who honorably served our country in combat during the Vietnam War. And I do have some regrets in life, and one of them is not serving our country in the military. I do regret that. And as a high school senior, I was poised to join the military and follow in my father's footsteps in service to our country, but my father said no, and I've always followed the guidance of my father. My dad, you know, he just felt like when he returned home, he really was not honored for the service that he had given to this country. And he really just didn't want me to go through that. For me, today, in a small way, I'm hoping to contribute to righting that wrong. And I ask that you all consider to do the same, because those contributions will go towards the maintenance of this site, which is going to be ongoing and something that we are going to need to continue to do. Now, I must say that I also am just so grateful for the financial and sweat commitment of partners, including, as mentioned before, our governor, delegates Fennell, Fisher, and Ivy, who supported our bond initiative funding. Give them a round of applause for sure. And also the champion within Maryland National Park and Planning, Ed Day, who is here as well. And back, make sure he gets his, so we mentioned him. And of course, Peace Cross's videographer and champion of all time, Miss Renee Green, who has been with us the whole way. And Mike Moore, who is American Legion Commander, who has really worked hard with us as well to bring this day to fruition. Let's give him a round of applause. So today we rededicate the Peace Cross for future generations, and I'm extremely grateful to all who got us to this moment to honor our fallen heroes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator, and I can also attest to the fact that that bond bill made a huge difference, and thanks to the delegation from the 47th and Delegate Ivy and Delegate Fennell, who I see out there right now. Thank you so much. We plan to recognize the elected officials a little bit later, but given the rain, we may do it at the reception. But I do want to take one shout out and recognize somebody that Chairman Shapiro introduced, but I do want to give a shout out to former Chairman Betty Hewlett for the simple reason that when the planning board faced a crossroad, a literal legal crossroad, they did not shrink either. There were plenty of people who had creative ideas about how we should change course. And they said no. They said no, full steam ahead. This monument belongs to the people of Prince George's County. We paid for it in blood, sweat, tears, and treasure, and that's the way it's going to stay. So, Betty, thank you for that. You know, there were two people who were at the Supreme Court with me the day that we went. One of them was Betty, but the other one was another important connection, another important, very important partner. It's my honor to introduce a leader, a colleague, a political force in her own right, and you can tell that. My friend, the council member from right here, the District 5, Councilmember Jolene Ivy.
Well, it figures at the moment it's my turn. The heavens open up. Thank you so much for being here with us today to celebrate this momentous occasion. I'm Jolene Ivy. I'm on the county council. And before that, I was in the House of Delegates. And during that time, my dad moved in with us. He moved in with us right at the time that I was elected. And for 5.5 years while he lived with us, he didn't miss a Memorial Day or a Veterans Day celebration right here. And he loved it so much. It's one of my fondest memories of him and at the end of his life was coming here, honoring the people who had served, because he had served. And he was a Buffalo soldier in World War II. He also served in the Korean War. He got a Silver Star, a Bronze Star, and 2 Purple Hearts, which he says nobody wants to get. But nonetheless, if he hadn't gotten through all that, I wouldn't be here today. And it was so exciting for me to get to be a part of going to the Supreme Court to hear the argument. I was so grateful to Betty Hewlett and Adrian Gardner for extending an invitation to me. I know they knew how much this memorial meant to me. And Renee Green, it's been a community rabble-rouser for the Peace Cross. And I'm glad that Senator Augustine recognized that too. Also, one thing that Adrian said a few minutes ago, which I thought was really important, is that 8 members who are recognized here who died in World War I from Prince George's County were African American. And I think that it's more than just saying that. I think it's more important to say it wasn't controversial. It wasn't a big argument about should we include them? Were they Prince Georgians? I mean, if you think about what that must have been like in the early 1920s, the people who made that decision, it was not something that they questioned. I'm grateful for that. I would have a hard time being here today, rallying the troops for this memorial if it didn't recognize everyone who made that sacrifice during that time. I'm a proud member of the Cheverly American Legion Post 108. I'm a member of the auxiliary. I see a number of people here today, and I'm glad to see you. I looked so hard for my hat this morning. I knew exactly where it was. And Glenn, when you come home tonight, you're going to look around the house and you're going to see I really did tear the whole place apart looking for the house. So thank you so much for being out today. Thank you for the rain slowing down for the end of my speech. And happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Councilmember Ivy. You know, I think it warrants mention as well that men are not the only people who died overseas during World War I. More than 100 women who were nurses also perished, and many of whom were buried in Europe as well. Let's not forget that. And so this really is about the men and women who have served our country. And I'd like to talk about another connection, because one of the other partners that we've had is the town of Bladensburg. You may not realize it. Yes, give it out. This site actually used to be the site of the town blacksmith. You may not know that, but it was. And so the town actually was involved in acquiring the site when the Peace Cross was being, conceived of. And so I'm especially pleased to welcome Mayor James here, who's been a vocal supporter, and the town council that has been very helpful and one amongst the most important advocates for our work on this. And so I'm honored to introduce the Mayor of Bladensburg, the Honorable Takesha James. Mayor James.
Well, I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. How about you? All right. Welcome to Bladensburg, everyone. Good morning. Again, welcome on behalf of the Bladensburg Town Council. We're honored to host you for this momentous occasion. I am joined by the rest of the Town Council, and I know they'll be recognized at the American Legion a little bit later. I want to pause and just celebrate all of our veterans who have served or are serving. This is your day, and what better day to dedicate this or rededicate this beautiful memorial in honor of the Prince Georgians who it was erected to honor. So let's give our veterans a hand, please. It was stated before, but I just want to reinforce, today marks a new chapter for the Peace Cross. This is a monument that represents the heart and soul for the Bladensburg community. And so my remarks are simply to thank those who have helped get us to this most beautiful and amazing moment. As I reflect, many may not know, but I also had the opportunity to hear the oral arguments before the Supreme Court, thanks to help from our police chief, Chief Collington. And so to be in that moment, after all the legal challenges building up to that day in February 2019, and then on June 20th, to hear the decision from the Supreme Court, we obviously were very joyous with the news that our Peace Cross was saved because of the value that it meant to our community. But then we had to start rethinking, how are we going to preserve this and restore it? And it was immediate, and it was really collaborative from the county council with Councilwoman Ivy, with Senator Augustine, jumping right in to assist with our partners at the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, then Chairwoman Betty Hewitt, and now Mr. Shapiro, As you heard from our wonderful governor, Governor Hogan, his team supporting it, that whole collaborative effort is something that we should not take for granted. It shows how much we can accomplish when we work together, as our soldiers often do, no matter what their political party. And so, again, we want to also take this opportunity to recognize some of the champions who you may not know. You may not know Miss Renee Green, who really evoked the community and got behind the Save the Peace Cross effort. And she was very instrumental with the restoration, along with Mr. Ed Day, who's in the background as well. Yes, thank you for your efforts. So again, to see such a tremendous amount of collaboration across all levels of partnership has meant the world to the Bladensburg community. I truly hope this rededication serves as a reminder to our veterans that while you're living and after you've departed this life, we will protect your memory and your honor at all costs. At the base of this beautiful monument are the words of President Woodrow Wilson, which say, "The right is more precious than peace." We shall fight for the things we have always carried nearest our hearts. To such a task, we dedicate ourselves. So in closing, I want to thank each of those individuals here today who stood for what is right in saving and restoring the Peace Cross. Your efforts to fight for this memorial and to have protected a precious memorial that is close to our hearts. Thank you for your undaunted dedication to this task. God bless you.
Thank you, Mayor James. That was wonderful and inspiring. As I mentioned to you, the American Legion has been a partner with the Park and Planning Commission on this site and the, saving the litigation and also with funding the restoration. And we are grateful to have a representative from the American Legion with us today, and that's Mr. Mark Seavey, the American Legion's National Judge Advocate. Mr. Seavey.
Thank you. Long before I was an attorney, I was an infantryman, so I love everything about this weather. I had a drill sergeant who reminded us every time it rained that this is the same stuff you shower in, so just consider it saving a little bit of time. But yeah, if it's not raining, we're not training, so I love everything about this. If there's any Army recruiters out there, hit me up right after this. I might be willing if I don't come to my senses. Many of the people memorialized here today served in the 115th Infantry Regiment, which is the local National Guard unit here. And it's the reason that made me so eager to drive here from Indiana. Back before I became a lawyer and sold my soul, apparently, I served in Afghanistan in the 116th Infantry Division, which was one of the sister battalions of the 115th. So I'm very proud to be here to represent the American Legion and to honor those who came before me. Anyone who served in the uniform, male, female, no matter what ethnicity or background, are my brothers and sisters. And any chance I get to come out and tell you how much I care for them and what they've done for us, I will do that. Today is a day dedicated to veterans, but at the American Legion, there are 355 just like it. Every day is Veterans Day to us. I wanted to specifically note two of the 49 men to whom this memorial was initially dedicated. The first is perhaps the most well-known. He was Gunner Henry L. Herbert. He was born in England, and he entered the British Colonial Service with an assignment in Malaysia as a clerk and a storekeeper in the state of Perak. He would marry his boss's daughter and quickly advance through the ranks. Now, the Washington Post helpfully summarized what happens next. He joined the Marines in 1898 after having an affair with his wife's sister and fleeing the scandal. In 1901, he was awarded the Medal of Honor for heroic action during fighting in Samoa 2 years earlier. It's hard for me to come up with a story more Marine than that. That's really something else. But he was killed in action at Mont Blanc Ridge in France on October 4th, 1918, and at the time of his death, he had been promoted to captain and had been approved by the Secretary of the Navy. He was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross and the French Croix de Guerre with Palm. He was quite a character, and I would invite you to research more of his story. I think you'll find it quite enjoyable. But it's the relatives of another soldier, Maurice Snyder, that are most responsible for my being here. They were contacted in 1921 by the American Jewish Committee in New York. which thought the family was Jewish and sought to honor Maurice. Snyder's father wrote back to say that the family was not Jewish, adding, "There was no distinction between Jew and Gentile. Truly, they played the part of good Samaritans." And that's true of all the men who are honored at this memorial. Snyder and another man named on the memorial, George Washington Farmer, were two of the first local boys that were killed in action. They grew up in Hyattsville and died on the same day, October 8, 1918, 4 days after the Medal of Honor recipient had passed. They perished within minutes of each other while routing a German machine gun nest in France, according to news reports. But it was Snyder's mother, Bernice, the head of the American Legion Auxiliary, who would help unveil the Peace Cross 6 years after his death. Now, Snyder had studied business in Washington before training for 8 months at Camp McClellan in Alabama. And according to reports, he was fatally wounded in the back by either a rifle or a machine gun, his company commander wrote. Corporal Snyder fought gallantly and bravely stood his post, at which place he rendered the supreme sacrifice. And that's why we're all here today. Just as the American Legion stepped in originally to help with the fundraising, so too were we there nearly 100 years later when the Peace Cross became the centerpiece of a court case which reached all the way to the Supreme Court. We were represented in that legal effort by Kelly Shackelford and his team at Liberty Legal Institute, who are here, and I appreciate you all coming, as well as Jones Day, which did an amazing job in arguing that. The Fourth Circuit had held that the 93-year-old memorial was unconstitutional merely because the memorial's private builders chose, decades before any government became involved, to commemorate their loved ones with a cross. According to the Fourth Circuit, because crosses are, quote, the hallmark symbol of Christianity with many years of accrued religious symbolism, the inherent religious meaning of the cross mandates that no matter how admittedly secular the government's motives in the display's history were, any reasonable observer would conclude that the government either places Christianity above other faiths. Thankfully, the Supreme Court, by a 7-2 margin, overturned that earlier ruling. Justice Alito stated that the cross is undoubtedly a Christian symbol, but that fact should not blind us to everything else that the Bladensburg cross has come to represent, and that by destroying or defacing the cross that has stood undisturbed for nearly a century would not be neutral and would not further the ideals of respect and tolerance embodied in the First Amendment. Today, I'm proud to be here to honor those who went before us. The American Legion's preamble, which is recited before each of our meetings, discusses the reasons that we bring ourselves together, and it notes that we associate ourselves together for the following purposes, and it includes to preserve the memories and incidents of our associations in all wars, to transmit or to safeguard and transmit to posterity the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy, and to consecrate and sanctify our comradeship by our devotion to mutual helpfulness. That's why we're all here. That's why we're here in the rain, and next year if there's snow, we'll be there too. And then if lava runs over this place, we'll still be here. So I appreciate all of you. It's great that I've had the opportunity to be here. I could not appreciate the invite more. And again, thanks to all the legal partners who stood in the face of this menace and managed to preserve what is an amazing monument. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Seavey. And at this point, I'm going to invite our chairman back up, Chairman Peter Shapiro. Give it up again.
As we wrap up, got a few tasks that I want to do. There's some folks that I want to recognize, first of all. And I want to begin by recognizing a special individual who's been mentioned a few times today, Renee Green. Renee served as the community voice for the Bladensburg World War I Peace Cross Memorial. Ms. Green was very instrumental in the Peace Cross being designated and confirmed on the United States National Register of Historic Places in 2015. She's infused her passion for this memorial in a documentary she wrote and produced called Save the Peace Cross. And for the past few years, she has dedicated her time to honor the veterans across our county and state by hosting an annual Veterans Day program right here on the grounds of the Bladensburg World War I Peace Cross Memorial. Ms. Green, if you would join me for a brief moment. I would like to present you an expression of our appreciation and ask you all to join me in thanking her and congratulating her one more time. Ms. Green's going to share a few words with us.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to say Happy Veterans Day. Isn't this lovely? And I really want to say congratulations to all of us. We all saved the Peace Cross. We restored the Peace Cross, and now we're rededicating the Peace Cross. Plus, I documented the whole thing. Another thing that you might not know is that the first day, when they dedicated the Peace Cross, it was a rainy day just like today. One of the best things of this 9 years has been the many people I have met who share the same values of loving our country, God, family, and respecting people who serve our country and keep us safe every day. That includes many of the people and the family members of the 49 men that are listed on the Peace Cross that we are honoring. Through the documentary, I got to meet many of the family members and know their stories. And now I really feel as though the 49 men, I know them too. I really appreciate this award. It means a lot to me. This has been an incredible journey. And I know I'm not alone. There's so many people from the town of Bladensburg, from Colmer Manor American Legion, Mike Moore, Senator Augustine, First Liberty, Jones Day, who worked so hard at this Peace Cross. And I want to mention one person, if I can, who might want to come up here, and that is Roger Byron. I see you, Roger. Roger was my attorney. He had to put up with me. And that was a fun experience, wasn't it, Roger? Yeah, it sure was. I mean, when we had to go in and go to the Supreme Court and we had to testify, one of the things they said was, "Did you do anything to stop this lawsuit?" I said, "Yes, I did the documentary," but they knew that. But they didn't know at the time that I put it on the National Register of Historic Places. It was going through its process. And Governor Hogan signed that thing right away. Woo! Well, as you can see, I'm very small, but some people say that I'm small and mighty. And I was a real surprise to those atheists in the other lawsuit, with this lawsuit. They didn't expect me. I would just like to say that we didn't just battle 3, we battled 22,000 atheists, and we won that battle. Plus, we saved over 2,000 other crosses throughout the country. Along with settling a Supreme Court decision, may the Peace Cross be here for generations to come so that everyone can enjoy the beauty of it and know and understand this is a memorial to 49 men who fought for our freedom, paid the ultimate sacrifice. So thank you very much, and God bless the Peace Cross. And God bless us. Thank you.
So first of all, for our staff, we're joined by our Director of Parks and Recreation, Bill Tyler, and a number of members of his team. And I won't list all the members of the team, but I just want to, you've got to know how many people have been involved in these efforts, from Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, Parks and Recreation, as well as General Counsel. There's just all sorts of folks who may go unmentioned, but appreciate all the work that they do. We also have a number of elected officials who are here as well. We've already obviously heard from Governor Hogan and Senator Augustine. We're also joined by Delegate Fennell, who's already been recognized, and also Delegate Julian Ivey is here as well. Good to see you. Mayor James, and I believe there are two council members from Bladensburg as well. Councilmember Rout and Blount, they're here as well. Thank you all very much. Senator Augustine mentioned a bunch of the mayors who are here as well, and it's great to see Mayor of Cheverly, Munyane, the Mayor of Comer Manor, Mayor of Casañas, Lily Thompson Martin, Mayor of Town of Fairmont Heights is here, Robert Crosland, Mayor of City of Hyattsville, Jeffrey Shomish, the Mayor of Town of Landover Hills, Mayor Porter, the Mayor of Sea Pleasant, so many folks who are involved, who are supportive of this effort. Thank you all for being here. I believe we're also joined by the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, Assumpta Chang Smith, our Executive Director. I think she's here as well, and I want to recognize her. And then make sure I don't forget anybody. No, I'm getting him. Yeah, I'm saving him for last, which is we are joined by our we are joined by the Maryland Secretary of Veterans Affairs, General George Owen, here. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. We appreciate that. And then last but not least, and I'm sure I missed somebody, but we are joined by our Congress member-elect from the 4th District, Glenn Ivey. Yeah. I would say, Glenn, you want to come up and say a few words, but he's not a Congress member yet, so we don't have to do it. It's okay. So with that, I would now like to turn the program over as we wrap up to Marvin Alonzo Greer, Colonel Robert Kiker, who are going to wrap things up for us. They're here. And thank you all very much.
While I get the names of the 49 heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice out, there's one group of people that I definitely want to highlight. I know the American Legion is an amazing organization that does great work for our veterans, youth, and our communities. However, a similar organization that was founded around the same time are the Gold Star Mothers and Gold Star Parents. For those of you not familiar with them, they're an organization that no person tries to join. Their children made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And I want to thank you all for your children's service and for your children's sacrifice and all that you do for our country. The names of the fallen 49 heroes from Prince George's County. Albert Norwood Baden, Henry H. Boswell, Herman E. Burgess, Clarence Butler, Vincent G. Cooley, James H. Cooper, Matthew Curtin, Harry Irvin Dennison, Wilmer Aubrey Disney, Joseph B. Edlin, George Washington Farmer, Thomas Notley Fenwick, You can give him a round of applause. Edward H. Fletcher. Joseph H. Ford. Ernest O. Garner. Milton Edward Hartman. Thomas E. Hawkins. Frank Holmes. Henry Louis Colbert. Charles Francis Huetman. William Lee. Ernest Pendleton Magruder. Essel Marcher Maxwell. Clarence R. McCausland. Lee Earl Merson. Howard H. Morrow. Isaac Parker. James Francis Queensberry. William Frederick Redmond. Frank Roderick Richmond. Harry Preston Robinson. Theodore R. Rochester. Frank C. Roba. Robert Curtis Rusk. John Henry Seaburn. Edward Schultz. Albert Smith. Maurice Snyder. John Arthur Spriggs. Pierre Christie Stevens. Kenneth Pierce Strong. William A. Taman. Elmer Thomas. Benjamin Eugene Thompson. Herbert Page Tolson. Elsie Ellis Turner. Hubert J. White. Walter Ernest Wilson. Herman Winter. And if you are able, if you could please stand for a moment of silence and the playing of taps.